So, good evening, good day, participants, attendees. Welcome to day 8 of the Newcomers for Nuclear Summer School. Today, we explore the evolving landscape of nuclear safety and security, from modernization practices to legal instruments and the emerging role of artificial intelligence. These topics are not just for technical upgrades, they represent a shift in how we protect people, facilities, and the environment in a rapid changing world. As we hear from global experts, let's think critically about how innovation and regulation must work and hand in hand. So let's also reflect on how we as community can contribute to a safer, smarter nuclear future. So thank you for being here. Your engagement, what makes this journey meaningful. So for today's agenda, we have an expected change in the schedule because Amparo Soler won't be able to join us for today. She's having an emergency at the hospital, so she's recovering. But today she's not gonna be able to make it for us, and she sends her deepest apologies for not being with us today. And we will continue with the original agenda, having first Mrs. Rondas Evans' presentation, and then Mrs. Viviana Espinosa from WINS, from World Institute for Nuclear Security. And for today, we have a great two moderators, Mrs. Eman Sayed from Egypt and Purity Mawia from Kenya. So let me just start introducing Mrs. Eman and Mrs. Purity as well. We had Purity for last week, but she's a great and very talented moderator as well. So Eman Sayed, she's a science communication and youth engagement coordinator at Egypt Young Generation in Nuclear, and Iman is a biotechnology graduate, class of 2022, from Cairo University and holds a diploma in bioinformatics. She is passionate about science, communication, youth empowerment, and sustainability within EGYGN and Rosatom initiatives. She actively facilitates science outreach, raising awareness about nuclear energy and engaging young people in sustainability efforts. Ahmed currently works as a laboratory technician in an international school where she received the Gold Certificate of Excellence from Audi Dubai. She also published her first research paper as first author in biotechnology, reflecting her commitment to advancing scientific research. Beyond her academic and professional work, she spent 6 months volunteering in Barcelona with Caritas, supporting community initiatives, and she also creates science content with She Bio Science and delivers workshops for children and adults on sustainable development goals through Youth Love Egypt. Her work reflects a strong dedication to making biotechnology and nuclear science more accessible, while inspiring youth and promoting sustainability through education and community outreach. So now let me present Mrs. Purity Mawaya. She's a senior corporate communication officer at NUPEA in Kenya, nuclear power and energy agency within Kenya, with over 7 years of experience in nuclear communication and stakeholder engagement. She is an enthusiast nuclear communicator who uses her voice and social platforms to create awareness about nuclear technology. She holds a communications and public relations degree, and she is pursuing a master's degree in development communications at the University of Nairobi. Mrs. Purity is a chartered public relations professional and a member of the Public Relations Society of Kenya and Women in Nuclear Kenya. Her expertise spans corporate communications, digital communication, and strategic stakeholder management, helping to build public understanding and trust around nuclear energy technology. So thank you very much, dear ladies, for today's presentation and all your participation in this program. We are very grateful to have you today and for the rest of these sessions. So thank you very much, dear moderators. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Florencia, for that introduction. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're joining us. Thank you so much for tuning in as we come to a close on this summer school. You must agree with me, this has been a very informative session. To start us off, we're going to start with the first session, which is on nuclear security frameworks and legal instruments, which will be taken through by Ms. Rhoda Evans, who is the head of program development and implementation at the World Institute of Nuclear Security. She which is the WiNI, which is a non-international non-governmental organization located in Vienna, Austria. And Ms. Rhoda is responsible for designing, developing, and implementing programs that support capacity building in nuclear security globally. A large part of that work is to support the core values of WiNI, which is gender equity, diversity, and inclusion by designing all the WiNI program and to empower women and the people with diverse gender identities to have confidence in asserting the expertise in area of nuclear security and also in encouraging the development of organizational culture which supports this value. Ms. Rhoda has a long career at the international and national level in nuclear safety and nuclear security. She is a lawyer by training and 30 years in governmental and regulatory bodies in Australia, which includes the General Legal Counsel, and then Deputy Chief Executive and Head of Regulations at the Australian Nuclear Safety and Radiation Protection Agency. Wow. She spent 5 years at the International Atomic Energy Agency in the Division of Nuclear Security as a Senior Nuclear Security Officer until she joined WiNI in 2017. Her interest in supporting newcomer countries began when she was a scientific secretary at the International Atomic Energy Agency guidance document that supports the milestone approach, which is the NSS 19, developing nuclear security infrastructure for nuclear power program, and her participation as a nuclear security expert in IAEA in mission. It does not end there. She has run workshops on the topic of the knowledge custom of nuclear technology, which seeks to empower countries who are purchasing reactor technology from vendor states to make sovereign decisions about procurement, tendering, contract management during the process of siting, construction, commissioning, and operation of nuclear facilities. You must agree with me, we are in for a very informative session by Ms. Rhoda. I'll encourage everyone to participate. You can send in your questions during the presentation, which she will gladly take as soon as she's done with the presentation. When you're ready, Ms. Rhoda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Purity. And let's see, there's always the moment of truth when you share your presentation that it will work. Yes. And let me just put it in. Oops, it's on the very last one. I'm sorry for flicking through here so quickly. Thank you for the introduction. And it's always such an incredible pleasure to be invited, and quite humbling too, to be invited to share experiences and expertise with you all. One of the things I was reflecting upon as we're coming to a topic of discussing nuclear security is there's a very significant anniversary coming up that the world marks and recognizes as a profound experience which set on a path lots of different changes in the international framework for nuclear security. And these were the events that occurred in the United States on September 11th, 2001. In fact, it's the 24th anniversary of those events next week. And the reason why they became so important in the field of nuclear security is they precipitated many, many changes internationally in the way that we thought about the protection of nuclear material and nuclear facilities, and some of the issues we had around who potential adversaries were, who may wish to cause deliberate harm to our nuclear facilities. And the reason why it resonates very much with me is that in 2001, I was presiding over licensing decisions for a new research reactor in the centre of our biggest city in Australia, Sydney. Some of you may know about a very wonderful organisation called the Australian Science and Nuclear Technology Organisation in Australia. And around that time, my organisation, the regulatory body, was licensing the next stage of construction of that reactor. When the events of 9/11 happened, overnight we were faced with some very significant decisions that we had to make. Because we were a regulatory body that prided ourselves on transparency, we took very seriously public consultation. And in libraries all over Australia was the entire application for the reactor, which meant all of the technical specifications, all of the engineering, all of the operational limits and conditions. Everything that up until that point in time, we were just thinking about as public information. But the fact that a terrorist attack occurred during this licensing process meant that suddenly we had to stop and think about how it impacted this critical infrastructure that Australia was constructing. So overnight, we withdrew all of the publicly available information about that reactor. Overnight, we had to consider what it meant for our licensing process. And overnight, we had to ensure that the reactor operator was fully taking into account the new risks that were posed by the potential threat of terrorist activity. So the reason why I mention this is that many of us come to nuclear security with an entirely different background, and suddenly through circumstances, we need to understand what this very important discipline actually means. So just a little bit of introduction there. And I've remained passionate about the developments in nuclear security for, the past 24 years, because so much has happened. And as you'll see in my presentation and my wonderful colleague, Viviana Moreno, what continues to evolve and things that we need to be aware of. So what's nuclear security? I mean, I'm sure many of you have a background in nuclear science and technology, engineering, physics, potentially chemistry. You may have disciplines related to radiation protection and nuclear safety. So what is nuclear security? Well, there's a definition that the International Atomic Energy Agency uses. So I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm going to slightly pull it apart so we really can think about what it might mean. So essentially, it's to prevent, to detect, and to respond to certain things. And these are criminal activities or intentional unauthorized activities that involve nuclear or radioactive material. And I think we pretty much know what that is, most of the people on this call. Or the associated facilities, like a nuclear power plant or a small modular reactor, and associated activities, things like the transport of nuclear material, for example. So what nuclear security is doing is it's examining the use of nuclear material, other radioactive material, the operation of facilities, and it's saying there are people who wish to deliberately cause harm. They might wish to steal material. They may wish to sabotage that material whilst it's in transport. They may wish to undertake activities which sabotage the facility, which typically means interfering with the safety systems of that facility. So it's very important that people understand that just as nuclear safety and radiation protection is important, so too is nuclear security. Because fundamentally, both safety and security are about protecting people, property, the environment, and society. In the case of nuclear security, from the harmful effects of a nuclear security incident, which might have, radiological consequences. The reason why this slide looks a little bit busy, and of course all of my slides will be available for you to read afterwards. I've put elements down on the slide to really convey the fact that nuclear security becomes part of the management system of any organisation that has a responsibility to protect and secure material, to protect and secure the facility. Now, very often, those protection elements are physical systems. They could be video surveillance systems. They could be other types of intrusion detection systems, motion detection, vibration detection, acoustic detection. They could also be other physical elements, doors, turnstiles, gates, and other types of detection systems. So these are kind of the physical systems. But nuclear security is more than physical systems. It's also people. What are their attitudes? Are they trustworthy? How do you train people in order to manage these systems? And they are also policies and procedures, and how an organisation globally manages the risk of having nuclear material and nuclear facilities that some adversary may wish to cause harm by doing something that get referred to as malicious acts. That could be sabotage, that could be theft, that could be a cyber attack. So it is very, very important at the first place for people to understand it. The other thing that's really significant, and it's the reason why I raised the milestones approach here. As many of you know, the IAEA has set up a series of documents, a lot of peer reviews to help each country understand what it needs to do, each country, to get ready to have a nuclear energy program. So there are different elements to this, and the milestones program actually talks about 19 elements. And that seems quite overwhelming because it's everything from safety to security, safeguards, human resources development, your grid infrastructure. And so each of these elements needs to be understood by a country and prepared for, which is why they call it a milestones program, because it has phases. Then it has the achievement of a milestone at the end of a phase. So phase one is really, how do you set up a body or a committee within your country that examines what do we have, what do we not have, what experience do we have in nuclear? And then at a certain point, at a milestone number one, you can say, yes, we've looked at all the issues that we have to take into account. One of the things that's very important and significant about nuclear security is it's basically a subset of your national security. It's the way in which your country protects itself from external and internal threats. So we call it often a sovereign responsibility. You can't outsource it. You can't give it to somebody else to do. It's really your responsibility as a country. And one of the fundamentally important things, I think, is that this responsibility is one where the country needs to commit the resources. So first of all, it understands what exactly nuclear security is. What are you protecting? Who are you protecting it from? How do these systems work? But no one else is going to do it for you. This is something that the country needs to understand itself. Sure, there are lots of external programs to help you build capacity so that you can ensure that you have a workforce that really needs to develop with the assistance from others from outside. But in the end, the country itself needs to be satisfied that it can understand what its obligations are. Now, originally, what I was asked to talk about in terms of nuclear security, what are those international instruments that a country needs to be aware of? Now, I didn't propose to take you through all of them. There are many, but I simply wanted to convey an understanding of what the broad set of principles are. International instruments have, there are different types. Different types of instruments then have different things that flow from it. For instance, you'll hear people using the word binding instruments and non-binding instruments. And the simplest way to describe those are binding international instruments are things like treaties, conventions. Could I just ask everyone just to mute your microphone? That's what I was thinking of. I'm sure it's unintentional. So conventions, instruments like also UN Security Council resolutions. They are so-called binding instruments. UN Security Council resolutions are binding on all UN member states. And there's a few other issues about how they're made and what they concern, but essentially, simplest way is to say, if you're a UN member state, and every country I'd say and participant in this program is part of a UN member country, so the security resolutions are binding on you. If it's a treaty or a convention, it's binding on you if you become a party to it. And that means your country agrees to sign up to the responsibilities set out in that document. But just as important are things called non-binding instruments, which means they're not conventions, they're not UN Security Council resolutions, but they are important documents that have been developed at the international level. Very good example of this are IAEA guidance documents in the area of nuclear security. Now, I always say that it's very interesting and important to know the difference between binding instruments and non-binding instruments. But when they get incorporated into a national legal system by people creating what we call legislation, which is made by your parliament or your legislature, they become binding at the national level, even if they're based on an IAEA guidance document. So I think it's always important to realize there's a difference between the international scene and then what happens in your country. Now, typically, countries that want to embark on nuclear programs are given lots of support and assistance by excellent experts, including from the IA, International Atomic Energy Agency, to help them create new legal documents so that they are ready for this journey to embark on a nuclear power program. And this again is another phase of the so-called milestones approach to nuclear power. Because if you look at the issue, I think it's issue 5, it says, are you aware of all the important international legal instruments, particularly those conventions that your country should become a party to? One of them is here, the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material and its amendment, and that is a very important international binding legal instrument that anyone or any country that wants to embark on a nuclear power program should become a party to that international instrument. Now, sitting here on this summer school, if you're not a lawyer and you're not responsible for your country's legal system, fine, okay. All I want you to kind of take away from this is that just as safety has some very important international instruments, like the Convention on Nuclear Safety and the Joint Convention on the safe management of spent fuel and radioactive waste. So too, nuclear security has some really important international instruments, and countries need to be aware of it. You can get lots of assistance and guidance to help you incorporate those obligations into your own national system. But here's another thing to understand about nuclear security. I'm a lawyer. Many people that I meet who are my peers in nuclear security are engineers. Some are physicists. Some are organizational psychologists. Some are anthropologists. Some are international relations experts. The most important thing to understand is that nuclear security as a discipline has so many different elements to it. And it's more than an old-fashioned saying, which is guns, guards, and gates. Now, let's be clear, in many systems, there still needs to be guards and gates. Depending on the country you're in, there may or may not be guns. It's not necessarily the case that an armed guard force is on your facility. In some countries they are. In other countries they rely on off-site responsibilities to assist them. But I guess what I want to say to you is the strength of nuclear security is the multiplicity of views and perspectives that people bring to it. So it's more than guns, guards, and gates, because I also want to have people to think, I can be part of a community of nuclear security professionals. The other really important thing is it's part of national security. So there are legitimately some issues in nuclear security, some information that needs to be protected. Protected at an appropriate level, because some information needs to be closely held so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands and is used for the wrong reasons. One of the really important things also is that to pursue the peaceful use of nuclear technology, nuclear energy, nuclear security is a fundamental requirement, just as nuclear safety is a fundamental requirement, and the obligations about non-proliferation and safeguarding material is also a fundamental requirement. And radiation protection. If you don't know or have enough infrastructure to manage those things, then it is very difficult to successfully put in place the peaceful use of nuclear technology. So what I'm saying is if this area is of interest to you, you are just as important as your colleagues in safety and radiation protection and other fundamental areas for the peaceful use of nuclear energy. And in the end, nuclear security is essential for human security, because in the end, everything we do, well, it's also about protection of the environment, but it's fundamentally protection of the populations that live around nuclear power plants. And in most countries, populations live around nuclear reactors. That is just a requirement, because it's to create electricity. Electricity needs to be distributed, and electricity is important for human prosperity, which means amongst us in our communities are critical infrastructure like nuclear power plants and in the future small modular reactors that need to be protected in order to protect us. Now, as my very dear friend and colleague Vivi will be talking to you about soon, nuclear security is an evolving field with technologies that change frequently. But interestingly, a lot of the international instruments that support nuclear security have not changed for some time. So the question is, are those instruments still as useful and important as they were? Now, I'll say two things about that. One is, I believe that most of the international instruments are in fact technology neutral, okay? So if you look at the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material, let's just not necessarily, we don't have to go into its amendment, but let's just talk in a straightforward way about the protection of nuclear material during transport. Now, what you need to protect against is the theft of that material or the sabotage of the transport container during transport. Now, if I were going to talk about that in the 1970s or the 1980s, I probably wouldn't be discussing whether there could be a cyber attack which would affect the geolocation of that truck. I probably wouldn't be talking about drones flying overhead and doing hostile reconnaissance of that vehicle. I would have been talking about quite different things. However, it doesn't matter for the purposes of the International Convention, because it still says that you need to protect the material against a set of adversaries that are theorized in what's called a design basis threat. So as far as I'm concerned, those international instruments are still fit for purpose, because we fundamentally have to be able to assess and understand what new technologies an adversary may be using for offensive purposes. And by the same token, we have to understand what new technologies we can use for defensive purposes. I'll give you a very good example. There's a major nuclear transport organization in the world. They use drones to protect their transport. So, you know, all of these advanced technologies we need to think a lot about. There's a collection of materials here on the side. One of the things that I'll put into the chat while my dear friend Vivi is giving her presentation is I will send you links of materials that you can obtain from the WiNI's website. All you need to do is register to be a member. That doesn't cost you a single cent. And all of the publications that you see here are downloadable for you. And one I thoroughly recommend to you is our new report on security in the nuclear supply chain, something that is affecting a lot of people. We also have some great documents here on cybersecurity. Now, I know you asked me to speak for a little bit longer, but I will wrap up soon because I don't want to take time away from questions. There are many challenges in nuclear security. I'm not going to go through all of these. I've mentioned a number of them. One I haven't spent a lot of time on is organizational culture. Vivi and I do a lot of work together on organizational culture, and fundamentally the role of a more diverse workforce, gender equality, diversity, and inclusion as a core value of an organization and how it supports and improves the organization's culture, including its security culture. And I've highlighted in green the fact that for us, that is a fundamental principle for the advancement of this field, as well as competence and capacity building. It is all about the human beings that are undertaking the roles, just as it is about understanding the mindset of the adversary who wishes to do harm. It's also about understanding what we as practitioners need to know and practice in order to reduce the risks that are unavoidably associated with the peaceful use of nuclear energy. So we have to counterbalance the fact that it's so important for our societies and our prosperity. We have to manage the risk of other things that could happen. So I'm going to conclude with this slide. WiNI's for many years has made a commitment both in what we say and what we do to the greater participation of women and people of diverse gender identity in nuclear security. We've made commitments to gender equality by design and inclusion and diversity by design in all of our programs. We make commitments to minimum numbers of subject matter experts and participants who are diverse in their background, because it is so important. We have an existential issue in cybersecurity and soon in artificial intelligence and its impacts on our field. It isn't enough to rely upon the numbers of people currently coming into the field. We don't have enough women coming into these technical domains. I still get very disheartened when I'm invited to something to speak about transport security, and I might be the only woman who's speaking about transport security. It's very difficult to find experts. And it's very difficult to find experts who are supported by their organisation to be involved in our work. You know, we may well be able to identify a wonderful subject matter expert, but it doesn't mean that her organisation or their organisation is going to support them to attend our events. But the fundamental thing is we are doing everything we can in order to make sure this happens. Because visible role models are very, very important, and the recognition of the diversity of expertise is also very important. Now, I've kind of ranged across a whole lot of things. I'm going to bring it to a close there, so there's plenty of time for questions and for my colleague. But of course, I will sit quietly in the background here until the moderators wish to start asking questions of me. Once again, thank you so much. It is always a great privilege to come and talk to you all, to share experiences, and if there's, you know, things that we can do together to grow this capacity and expertise, then we're very happy to do it. And so I will end there. I'll stop sharing my screen. And now I'll wait for the moderators to see when you want to have more questions. But thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rhonda, for your lovely presentation. Very clear, very concise, and you can clearly tell she is very passionate about this particular subject. We have a couple of questions which we will share in the next 5 minutes. We can try and answer them. I encourage everyone to share your questions on the chat. Then you'll see how many questions you can answer within this limited time. So the first question is from Ms. Ali. And the question is, how does human performance tools align with nuclear security? How does human performance tools align with nuclear security?
Okay. Maybe I need to clarify, but what I'm understanding there is the human performance, human reliability that is present in most nuclear operations, nuclear organizations. That comes down to the design of what used to be called, amusingly, the man-machine interface, but thankfully now is the human-machine interface. So it's all to do with how the work is organized, structured, the physical environment that you're in, the expectations, the aptitude, and all those other things that are present and required for safe, reliable operations absolutely underpin trustworthy, reliable human performance as a security measure as well. So did that answer the question? Because I believe, having been a regulator of operating organizations, that you can't separate the two things, because I am one human. I'm working in an operating environment, whether I have an operational production focus, whether I have a safety focus, or whether I have a security focus, those programs, human performance, human reliability, are fundamental to how I do my job and how I ensure security, safety, and operations all together in one. Did I understand the question correctly?
I believe so, but I'll encourage Ms. Ali to maybe share on the chat if he has any follow-up questions to the theme. We have like about 3 minutes. I'd like us to take 2 more questions. from Mr. Idrissa, excuse me if I pronounce the name incorrectly. He's asking, is the current nuclear security framework truly fit to prevent diversion in the age of AI and evolving threats? Would you like me to go again?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
This, I think, comes back to the idea about whether or not the instruments or the legal framework that you have is technology neutral and therefore can adapt to the evolving threats from advanced technology. This often comes down to whether or not your regulatory system is prescriptive or performance-based, whether it has already tried to incorporate technology as a feature. I strongly recommend against those things. But I believe that if you have a performance-based system, which simply says we're trying to prevent and protect against theft, against sabotage, then the manner in which that is done shouldn't be affected. You're still, but I mean, in fact, it's affected because you need to adapt to this new environment, but your instruments should be written, drafted in such a way that you can evolve with these evolving threats. They are a challenge for a different reason. They're a challenge because you actually have to protect and secure against them, but the regulatory framework should allow that adaptation. Otherwise, you're always playing catch up with your legal changes. And as we all know, they take a long time to get through parliaments and to get written and to get agreed.
Thank you so much for that. I see we have one minute. Maybe we could take up one more question before we give the floor to the next presenter. Hello, my name is Kaula. I am from Morocco. Thank you very much for the presentation. The question, I've benefited a lot, and my question is, how can we measure the effectiveness of a national legal framework for nuclear security? And then he has a follow-up question, are there international recognized indicators or evaluation mechanism?
Okay. The effectiveness of your regulatory system, I guess, is whether or not it gives you confidence that the operators who are subject to the regulatory system are able to perform in a manner that reduces risk, okay? So are you confident not just that there won't be an incident, because that's not possible, but that if there were an incident, that there is a response to the incident, that all of the organizations that have roles and responsibilities know what they have to do. We can never reduce risk to zero. That's impossible. But the effectiveness of your legal and regulatory framework is an important question. There are documents, I believe, that have been produced by the OECD Nuclear Energy Agency on regulatory frameworks and assessment of their performance. They tend to be written from the safety perspective, but as far as I'm concerned, the principles should be able to be applied. In the nuclear security area from the IAEA, I'm not aware of such a document. Very often people don't like to kind of publicize that. I guess the closest that might come is the IAEA's IRRS, the Integrated Regulatory Review Service, that is undertaken by international peers. So if you really do want to benchmark the effectiveness of your regulatory system, then there are a number of independent international peer review missions, which may be the best way to do it, in fact. I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much. Let's close this session of questions for Rhonda. And then if we have enough time after Viviana's presentation, I think we have a couple of questions unanswered. Rhonda, is that okay with you if you stay a little bit more with us after Viviana's presentation?
Oh, absolutely. I'm also going to type some responses as well while we're working, but I'll be staying on. And yeah, sure, I can take some more questions, no problem.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. We really appreciate that. It was a brilliant presentation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And now I'd like to hand over to Eman. Please, Eman, the floor is yours. If you can introduce Viviana Espinosa Moreno, who's currently in Vienna working at WiNI Institute. Thank you so much. Welcome, Viviana.
Hello, each other. I'm Iman. Welcome to NewComers4Nuclear Summer School 2025. Our session today about exploring the role of artificial intelligence in the strengthening the security of nuclear facilities. Our speaker today, Viviana Esponsona Moron. She is a senior project manager, World Institute for Nuclear Security. And she will start our session for today.
Thank you so much, Eman, for your introduction, your kind introduction. I guess Florencia is, yes, she's sharing the presentation from me because I want to prevent any technical problems. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to share this space with you today, and congratulations to WiNI Global, WiNI Young Generation for putting together this exciting and very important program. I think it's a great initiative, and thank you so much for allowing WiNS to be part of it. I guess everyone hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we do hear you. Please, you can continue.
Perfect. Excellent. Good. So as Eman says, I am Viviana Espinosa Moreno. I'm from Colombia. I'm working with WiNS since around 5 years. Oh my God, the time just flies. And in the past years, I had the opportunity to engage with nuclear professionals, experts, cybersecurity experts, AI experts, regulators, operators from around the world. And these presentations and what I am going to talk to you today is based not only on the research of those experts, but also on the discussions that we have and the lessons learned on three recent international workshops that WiNS organized. So what I wanted to share with you today is to have, let's say, a quick overview on how AI has the potential to be adopted in our sector, what will be the opportunities that it offers, and also the risk that it brings. And most importantly, what will be the role of the newcomers like you that you can play in the responsible use of AI. So if we go to the next slides, let me start with a simple questions. Why we are talking about AI in this field? Think, please, how quickly threats are evolving. Adversaries today have access to tools that were not imaginable 10 years ago. So now they have drones, they have, the opportunity to do deep fakes, cyber exploits, and let's say nuclear operators are now under pressures to stay one step ahead. At the same time, AI has become part of our daily lives. I guess all of you use ChatGPT, also use Waze or Google Maps to navigate traffic, Also, bank system use use the detectors to fraudulent transactions, and also Netflix is recommending us the next movie because of the algorithm. So naturally, the nuclear sector is asking the question, how AI can help us to detect, for example, an insider threat in our nuclear facility. So I wanted maybe to do this a little bit more interactive, and then maybe you can type in the chat whether you see the role of AI in nuclear security more like a risk, more like an opportunity, or both. So maybe you can type in the chat, and then just we chat about it and discuss your responses on the chat. Let's see if I see something coming up. You are very quiet today. Just give it 1 minute more to wait for everyone to type in the chat whether you see more like a risk, more like an opportunity for our sector to implement AI. But and currently more risks, yes. Anyone else? It can be both, but an area to optimize and create different technological opportunities. Yes, yes, I agree. Good. So I guess yes, the answer is both. Also from our previous events, we asked our participants if they see more like a risk of an opportunity. And then, yes, it seems AI can help us to reduce the human error and detect threats faster, but also could introduce new vulnerabilities if it's misused. So if we go to the next slide, let's start from the basics. What is AI? So I will just go shortly, then we are all in the same page. The term AI is not new. It was first coined at the Dartmouth Conference in 1956. Back then, AI was defined as the idea that every aspect of intelligence could be, in principle, be simulated by a machine. Today, we think of AI a bit differently. We think about AI as the ability of machines to learn, to reason, to adapt, and sometimes create. So they perform tasks that usually require human intelligence. And on the broad spectrum of AI, we have different types. We have reactive AI. Think about maybe a chess computer that calculates the best movements, but doesn't improve over time, just keep doing the same. So they follow strict rules without learning anything else. Then we have machine learning. And machine learning, probably you have heard a lot about it. But basically, what it does is that it identifies patterns and make predictions based on data. For example, for our sector, an example is predicting when a radiation detector might fail based on years on performance data. And then the other one, and this is probably the one that we are hearing more and more about it, is generative AI. And this is a step forward in creating new content, such as text, images, or synthetic data. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, previous Pope was dressed completely in a very fancy attire, and it was synthetic content generated by artificial intelligence. So if we go to the next slide, what will be then the potential applications in nuclear security? What can AI do for us? Let me give you a few scenarios. Rhonda was mentioning surveillance systems in a power plant. So traditional cameras might flag motion in the middle of the night, maybe, perhaps an animal, a gust of wind. But now AI-enhanced cameras can distinguish between whether it was a raccoon, whether it's a real intruder, or it's just an employee working late. Also, let's think about cybersecurity. AI has the potential of analyze thousands of system logs in real time and can spot an anomaly that human analysts will probably miss, like, for example, a staff member logging in an unusual time in the night or from an unusual location. AI also could support open source intelligence. So at one of our workshops, a speaker showed us how AI tools were able to map extremist online networks and identify potential threats by recognizing some patterns across thousands of social media posts. And another exciting area that has been explored in nuclear security is training and simulation. And this is very interesting because instead of these static training modules, AI can actually generate adaptive scenarios. So imagine running a security drill where AI modifies the threat depending of how the team responds to the particular scenario. So it will make each scenario, each exercise unique and closer to real world and predictable. A very good case example that we saw from our previous workshop, if we go to the next slide, is data fusion. So this is very interesting because actually what it does is, for example, a nuclear facility that has multiple security layers. So it has camera at the gates, it has badges readers at entry points, it has, I don't know, radiation detectors in storage areas. And traditionally, you know that these systems work in isolation. But with AI, actually, you have the opportunity to bring all of them together. And if someone wipes a badge to enter, the camera verifies if he's the right person. Then the radiation detector ensures that they are not carrying unauthorized material. And when these data fuse, these inputs create a much more clear picture for the person who is reading this data. Actually, at Sandia National Laboratories, researchers show how this kind of system significant reduce false alarms, and instead of overwhelming guards with dozens of alerts here and there, it provides a single reliable one. And this makes, of course, security much more efficient and much more resilient. So with that, what are the benefits of AI for nuclear security? So if we go to the next slide, we see some benefits that are clear. For example, AI doesn't get tired. No, it's not like this security guard we just mentioned right now. It can monitor 24/7. Also, it has the benefit that it reduces false alarms, which means operators can focus on the real threat. Also, it speeds up decision making, so it helps people to make better decisions by analyzing a vast data in real time, for example, with the use of data fusion. Also, it could prevent when equipment will fail, allowing maintenance before a crisis occurs. And something very interesting is that AI is a very powerful tool when integrating cyber and physical domains. For instance, cyber intrusion consists with an unusual activity in the physical gate. And these two systems can connect the dots much faster than humans alone. But of course, There is many opportunities, but there are also many risks and challenges, as we were mentioning at the beginning of this presentation. So if we move to the next slide, we know that, of course, integrating AI into nuclear security systems also bring many risks and challenges. First, AI can be wrong. It's not a silver bullet. False positives may lead to waste of resources. Also, false negatives could mean and miss it a threat. And we have seen cases where AI confidentially delivers incorrect information, what we call nowadays AI hallucinations. Second, there is this risk of excessive dependence with AI. So if operators place too much trust with AI without questioning the output, their own attention and critical judgment may decrease. So you probably have here now in education how there are many skills that the students are not developing because of the use of ChatGPT, for example. And third, adversaries are, of course, already using AI with deepfakes, with video cloning, AI-powered cyber attacks. And these are just not futuristic scenarios. It's like really happening today. And another one of the challenges, a risk, and we see of the AI integration into nuclear security is, of course, that this AI system inherited bias from the data they are trained on. You know that the data they are trained on are from the internet, and the internet is widely biased, racial bias, gender bias, social bias. So there are many questions regarding ethical and accountability. And who is responsible at the end when AI makes the wrong decision or the wrong call. So as you know, artificial intelligence is transforming the way we create, consume, and share information. Brings incredible possibilities, but also serious vulnerabilities, especially in trust and accuracy in everything that we share in the information. So this is where it gets especially dangerous, and something that we are looking a lot in WINS is also the impact on disinformation in nuclear security. And this is problematic because think about all of these deep fakes that look real, fake news that express faster than facts, and misinformation campaigns designed to erode public trust. And I guess now for, of course, the discussion about newcomers, and many countries interested in embarking in nuclear, public trust is very important. And of course, in nuclear security, where confidence and credibility, these areas are vital. So a real example, I don't know if you remember that after the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria, social media exploded with posts and videos. And in the middle of the chaos, what happened? There was a tweet that went viral, and it came from a verified account, actually. And it showed what looked like a nuclear power plant explosion triggered by the earthquake. And within hours, the video reached more than 1.2 million views. And people were sharing, commenting, and create, of course, panic. But the post was not real. The footage was actually from Beirut explosion in 2020. And of course, a very tragic event that killed over 200 people. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the earthquake or nuclear power. But many millions of people scroll that day, and the damage was done. And at the end, this is what, of course, impact in public perception. So just to bring you into the conversation, I would like to ask you, if you have ever seen or even accidentally share misinformation or disinformation in your social media, in your personal social media, or came across misinformation or disinformation. Just you can post in the chat.
Thanks, Viviana, for this enriching session. We truly.
Sorry. Do I have
Yes, you have a
2 more
couple of
minutes?
yes, just let her continue, Aman, and then we take over the Q&A session, please.
Okay. Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you.
I was
I
asked to be a little bit longer in my presentation, but it's fine. So I will just go quickly then to the next slide. So then we have to think about what will be the prerequisites for adoption. So how we make sure that we adopt AI responsibly. As Rhonda was mentioning, and there was a question also in the chat regarding governance and policies. So without them, the adoption is chaotic and uneven. But this brings, of course, a huge challenge since regulations does not keep the pace with technological development sometimes. Also, something critical that I think that this was one of the most important points is AI literacy and training, not just for engineers, but also for managers, regulators, and even not technical staff. These also human plus AI partnership. So AI should support but not replace human judgment at the end. And always continuous testing and redundancy is critical to make sure systems remain reliable, and security by design, ethics by design. So transparency and accountability must be built into it from the very start. The Canadian regulator like put it very well. They say like we don't need AI specific rules. What we need is frameworks that ensure safety and security regardless of the technology. And if we go to the next slide, this brings me to the final and perhaps the most important point that I want to make in this presentation, and is people. Technology alone cannot secure nuclear facilities. We need professionals that are AI ready. And what this means means that they understand data, they understand cybersecurity, they can adapt to tools, and they can recognize both the opportunities and risk. Dr. Eva Brainfield from PNNL made an excellent point actually that I want to recall. And she mentioned that not everyone needs to be an AI developer, but everyone needs to be need an AI literacy. So an AI monitoring, a guard monitoring and AI enhanced cameras, for example, should know when to trust the system and when to question it. A regulator, for example, should know how to assess whether AI has been responsibly implemented, and that's why literacy is key. And this is where you, the newcomers, play a crucial role, since you are entering the nuclear field in a time of transformation, let's say, of technological transformation. So you will be the one deciding how AI is integrated, ensuring that it's enhanced and not undermine security. So with this, I just conclude my presentation. So just saying that AI is not a miracle cure or not an inevitable threat, but depends of how we choose to see it and apply it. Thank you so much. I will be glad to continue the conversation. And if you want to explore further about this topic, I encourage you to visit our Knowledge Center, where you can access the report of the past events and also the record of the past events regarding AI and also disinformation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Viviana, for this enriching session. We truly value your time and your experience. And now we can go to Q&A for question. Dressa from Burkina Faso, thanks for your session. Can AI truly enhance nuclear facility security without demonstrating human oversight? She asked you.
Yes, sorry. Yes, absolutely.
Take your time.
I mean, I do believe, as I mentioned in my presentation, there should be AI, so technology and human integration. So without human oversight and human design from the very beginning, I think the integration will be misused. So at the end, I do believe that these two, it needs to have synergy from the very, very start.
Okay, thanks. And then, Khawla, thank you for your presentation. My question is what role can developing countries such as Morocco play in adapting KI solution for nuclear security despite limited resources?
Yes, this is a huge problem. Actually, I'm also from a developing country, and I do believe that there is a huge gap in terms of resources on adopting technology, and this is the digital divide. No, and this is one of the most significant challenges that the global South face nowadays. That the inequality between the global North and the big players in the nuclear field and countries like us embarking or expanding the technology. It's a huge challenge for us. So it's gonna let us, of course, a little bit, let's say, we will come late into the game because of the lack of resources.
Wow.
So yeah.
Thanks. And then Noreen asked, once I want through the WiNI nuclear security communication certification course back in 2016, many concepts clarify by difference between misinformation and disinformation.
I guess she's asking, well, I was not in 2016, Rhonda maybe was, but I guess also not. But we ran with Rhonda together a communication workshop that was in 2021, 2022, where we explore the role of disinformation and misinformation. And misinformation basically is information that is not true and is being shared, but without any malicious intention. So the information was created not to cause harm. It was just, your uncle, your auntie sharing information in WhatsApp that is not true, but, so this is basically what is misinformation. Disinformation, on the other hand, is a content that is produced to cause any harm. So this is like the difference between these two concepts. If you wanna take a look on this communication workshop, we have it in the Knowledge Center, the recording and the report, I believe.
Great.
Yes, as I mentioned, any new technology we try to integrate in the nuclear sector can create vulnerabilities and can create a threat, especially because we are not the only one using the technology, but also the adversaries are using the technology, and probably they are going even faster than us, because of course the nuclear sector is a highly regulated sector. So we are in a more slower pace than the adversaries sometimes. So of course it's a huge challenge. On the other side, I also believe that if we wanted to understand or not, we are already integrating this into our daily lives. So I think about an employee of a power plant that used ChatGPT for work. So we are sharing information, personal information, all the time with AI. We are sharing also content in social media. So in a way, we are already making our systems a bit more vulnerable because of the rapid advancement of AI into our lives. So we also have to be realistic on the that this is already part of our lives, and also organizations must address this.
Thank you, Viviana. Idrissa says, I really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Feel free to ask any question.
Can I just add something that's really important for newcomers? And it's the fact that very often you will be presented with turnkey contracts to sell you reactor technology. And this is something that many organizations internationally have been talking about. And as new and advanced technology become cost effective for reactor exporters to integrate into their designs and sell to you, it will become increasingly the norm that many systems which are sold as part of the supplier's contract with you have AI-enhanced systems embedded within them. And so this will become the challenge, which is that the country receiving the technology, needing to regulate it from its own perspective, need to understand its operations and how to ensure that it works well for you, will be dealing with this enhanced technology. Now, the most important thing is that that is transparent, that is known. Because, you know, I have regulated through the change from analog to digital. Sounds extraordinary, but that happened. And that was as difficult as these advances are now. I mean, it was an absolute change in the way that systems worked. But one of the most important things is that a regulatory body will never allow the decision-making that is so crucial in nuclear security, which could be, how do you neutralize an adversary? I mean, how do you actually take a threat out? No one will ever allow that decision to be made by a machine. You know, because remote weapon systems do exist, but no one will ever allow a non-human to make a decision about deploying something which would take another human life. I think I mean, there's governance, as Vivi said, is so important, and that governance has to come through the regulatory system. That this fusion between the AI-enabled technology and what you do with it is so important. And that's why, you know, as an international community, we have to make sure as Vivi is doing through her work on AI, that there is a really present understanding of the challenges, and particularly for newcomers, and particularly for vendors who want to sell you particular solutions. So, you know, it's kind of a very important thing to take into account, and particularly for the generation of professionals that are going to be dealing with the new reactor types and their advanced technology.
Hey, Viviana, please, we have some question in our chat.
Yes, I saw one question,
Yeah,
and it's regarding whether this technology is already being used, right?
yes.
Yeah, so I wanted actually to mention that after one of our workshops, the head of nuclear security from the power plant of Slovakia, I forgot the name of the power plant in Slovakia. Rhonda, you remember the power plant in Slovakia? Molchova?
Yes, I think so, but I can't cross
I
my
cannot
heart and say
pronounce
that's
it
correct.
at the end, but yes. So he report in our in a second engagement that we have that they started to implement AI into the camera system. And it was very interesting. So I was asking him how this is going. But what they have done is a closed system. So basically they use the own software, and it's not connected to the internet, but it's a closed system because, of course, yeah, what we were talking now, how this technology may integrate new vulnerabilities into the system. So they are piloting actually at the moment using AI for cameras and detectors too, but having it in a closed system.
Okay, thank you. We have 1 minute. Feel free to ask any question.
Just maybe something, and a little bit the message, since there are many young professionals here connected today. In my experience, what we have seen, and Rhonda mentioned it also when we were talking about the lack of women and the lack of young professionals into particular fields like cybersecurity, transport security. This is a little bit more dramatic also in AI. And as we were mentioning, if we don't have this AI literacy or AI experts that look into that work into the nuclear field, really we are facing a huge problem. In the 2-3 events that we have, it was almost impossible to find someone that looked particularly, for example, at AI, disinformation, and nuclear security. So there is really a need for people with this multi and interdisciplinary background to work in this sector and to look at these new challenges with the integration of new technologies. And it's not just that we need people from STEM, we need people from all of the other disciplines like behavior disciplines like social science and so on. Nuclear security is normally it's a secondary career, and I believe that it's open for many professionals. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again for your presentation. It was very organizable. Okay. If anyone have any question, please. Okay. We have just 1 minute.
For the record, I'm just sharing Viviana and Rhonda's emails to all the attendees in case that someone is not today, or you forgot to take notes of those contacts, we can put them on the WhatsApp group. And also you can email me, you can email Lancina, Mrs. Eva, and we will direct you through Rhonda and Viviana for any other further information about WINS. I think everyone enjoyed very much today's topic and theme. I mean, legal framework is always something very cautious to talk, and I think Rhonda make it so smooth with her experience and her enlightenment to the participants, as well as Viviana. You did a wonderful job taking us through how we'll be facing some of the AI challenges in the coming generation. I mean, the earlier we start with this, the better it would be. And I think we need to put hands on this. And if we can create some other platforms to talk about it, will be better, because this is how we avoid misinformation, miscommunication, and everything. So we thank you very much for today's contributions from both of you and from all the participants. And we hope this won't be the only occasion that we can continue collaborating. And we hope to see you more in our future events together. And thank you very much for today. So with all that said, this is of today's event ending, and we hope to see you tomorrow. And again, thank you for all your support and help.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias a ti, un
Thank you so
abrazo.
much.
Thank you.
Have a very good rest of your day, evening, or night, depending where you are. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Emma, Purity, thank you so much to both of you ladies. We'll be sending you the certificate of participation for today's moderation event, and we hope to count on you in other events. Thank you very much for attending today.
Thanks for you. Thanks for all for these sessions in this school. Thanks.
Thanks to you. Thank you very much.